Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Gryn. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Gryn. I hope you had a great weekend, Labor Day weekend. Enjoyed it with family and friends, and hopefully you're enjoying some good weather where you're at. I know they're getting a lot of rain in the south, and in Chicago we've been blessed with beautiful weather, 70s, and the days are shortening, so you got to really enjoy this fall weather and these fall conditions because winter is upon us. Before I get in the micro podcast, hopefully you listened to my interview with Brad Kearns. We did sort of a dual podcast. Brad's someone who's helped me since I started my podcast, and he has what's called the BRAD podcast. So definitely check that out. The guy's been in the health game for a long time. He's written over 20 books on diet, health, peak performance, ancestral living. And we sort of just had a, back and forth regarding the advantages and the disadvantages of fasting and low carb and cold thermogenesis, exercise, and so on and so forth. So I really enjoyed talking with Brad, and hopefully you got something out of that sort of dual podcast that we did together. So that's episode 183. So definitely check that out. And what I want to touch on today was a topic that I've probably talked about, over a year ago. And that was some simple tips when you're going out to dinner. So it, a lot of people, some people love to go out to dinner. My wife and I, we tend to cook a lot at home, and we find that, we prepare food just as good as most places when they go out. We like to keep it simple, and usually have a solid fish or a meat, and maybe just a side of, sometimes a side of a potato, but sometimes just vegetables as a side. And that's it. We try to keep it simple. We know what's going in our food. And I think that's sort of like one of the top principles to maintaining health and optimizing health is cooking for yourself. But I understand that a lot of people socially like to go and eat out, which is completely fine. We don't go out to dinner a ton, but when we do, I think it's important to maybe follow certain guidelines that can help you so you don't get off the rail when it comes to your health. Not to say that going out, splurging every once in a while, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you can get back on track. But I figured it'd be worth an episode of just touching on, what are some of like the simple tips and tricks when you go out, so you can, sort of stay on your health journey and make sure that you can eat and splurge and try some cool foods and different things. I think that's what makes eating out fun, but you can also do it in a manner that's, that's advantageous to your health. So here we go. Let me go through some tips. One, going to dinner and having a little bit of something even before, a healthy snack before, is not a bad idea. This way you're not sort of like feel like you're gorging at dinner. Maybe a healthy little snack. Maybe it's a handful of nuts or some raw veggies before you go out. Another tip is if you want to prevent sort of a big insulin spike, not to say that having an insulin spike is necessarily unhealthy. It's not. But if you cut water with some apple cider vinegar, this will help prevent a big insulin spike at dinner, and it is also quite satisfying as well. So you can give that one a try. Another great tip I love is asking the server to refrain from bringing bread to the table. Honestly, I don't really eat bread at all. I would say we rarely eat grains in general. I think if you're going to have bread, make it yourself, maybe a quality homemade sourdough bread, but everything else is just processed too much in general, whether it's whole grain or White bread. I mean, if you do want to try a bread, there's a bread called Ezekiel bread, and it's in the frozen part of the market. So that's a healthier grain um, that that is definitely worth checking out if you like that, if you want to have some bread. But in general, if you ask the server to refrain from bringing bread, then you won't be tempted. Next, like starting also your meal with some type of healthy soup or side salad, I think is a great way to go. You'll be less likely to maybe overeat during the meal because you're getting some fiber and even some water, obviously, from the salad as well. And this is help to keep you satisfied and fill you up. So that's a great way to start the meal. Also, drinking some water before the meal is not a bad way to go either. We always talk about, actually, if you listen to my last micro podcast, of the importance of maybe having water and a little bit of salt in there, just for some electrolytes and some sodium and potassium and magnesium. You could do a mineral drop, or you can just maybe do like some of these um, like element which I mentioned in the last episode, these little electrolyte powders you could put in the water. Anyways, I think it's not a bad idea to do that as well. A lot of times you think you're hungry, but you're actually just thirsty. um, Next is just, this is a big one, is avoiding fried foods and the creamy sauces and the breaded items. you know um, this is so important because obviously fried foods are fried in some type of vegetable oil, and vegetable oils, as we know, can cause inflammation. When they're heated at high temperatures, you're essentially, it's called causing some oxidative stress, and is going to cause inflammation, and it's not going to be good for your mitochondria. So we want to avoid the fried foods for sure. Ask maybe to get them grilled, braised, or steamed, or even pan seared, as opposed to being fried. So that's a big one. Another one too is maybe ask the server what your food is being cooked in. A lot of times, if I go to a restaurant, I order eggs, I'll say, instead of cooking it in canola oil, or you know sunflower oil, or safflower oil, which most, the 99% of the restaurants are cooking them in these cheap vegetable oils. Ask them to cook it in olive oil or ghee or butter, or tallow, or some type of animal fat. These saturated fats can handle the high heat, as opposed to these refined vegetable oils, which just cannot handle the heat and get oxidized, and that's not good for your body. So that causes inflammation in the long run. So I know it might seem like a pain, but I would ask the server what they're cooking in, and ask for a healthy option other than just these vegetable oils. So don't be afraid to ask. Also, don't be afraid to ask maybe for some healthy substitutions. Instead of French fries, I'll have a baked potato, or a side of, I don't know, side of asparagus, whatever it is. That's a big one as well. So, those are the main tips and tricks I would say that you should do when you're going out. And I think this can, you can still enjoy your meal and get some foods that maybe you wouldn't make at home, but also keep it on the healthier side. So, um, you know, I think in an ideal world, we can all cook for ourselves, because we know exactly what's going in our food. And I think over the quarantine and the COVID era, a lot of people were cooking for themselves, and I think that actually helped people with their weight. Some people, it went the other way, and they ended up ordering in every night, and that doesn't do you so good. So nothing wrong with every once in a while, maybe once or twice a week, but if you're doing it ordering in every night, I would be, I would think twice about that. So, anyways, those are the tips I wanted to go through. When eating out, it might not be a perfect thing, and that's okay. It's not about being perfect. It's just about taking these small little steps that could help you just maintain or optimize your health, whether you're eating in or going out. So, if you have any questions regarding this, let me know. Send me an email, brian@briangryn.com. And hopefully you're enjoying these micro podcasts. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to touch on today is, you can still eat out, enjoy it, you know, socialize with friends and family, but also do it in a responsible manner. So I appreciate you listening to the podcast. Hopefully you're enjoying all these episodes. If you have any questions, like I said, email me, brian@briangryn.com, and enjoy the rest of your week. I'll talk to you on Friday. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangryn.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.